Welcome to the Benning Report. Coming up in this edition, Fort Benning says goodbye to its Command Sergeant Major.
And how Combatives is infiltrating the Army.
Later, Fort Benning services come together to practice emergency readiness. Welcome to the Benning Report. I'm Nicole Randall.
And I'm Sarah Tate with the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office. Thanks for watching.
Fort Benning recently said goodbye to its Command Sergeant Major as he relinquished responsibility in a ceremony held recently on post. Command Sergeant Major James Carabello, the Maneuver Center of Excellence Command Sergeant Major, will move on from Fort Benning, but will take many experiences with him when he goes.
Fort Benning is a tremendous installation. The leaders that are here, the soldiers that are here, all of the training that goes on a daily basis, seeing the amount of activity that goes on in the professional development of our soldiers. This is what the Army is about here at Fort Benning. It's going to be hard to leave that.
While proud of all of his experiences here at the Maneuver Center, Sergeant Major Carabello is especially fond of the installation's ability to reorganize itself so effectively.
To have the infantry and the armor schools, come together, and then to have them nested with their training and having them not forget the lessons of the last 12 years of combat operations, whether they've been in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's a tremendous achievement on part of the entire installation.
As a decorated infantryman, Carabello has spent a good deal of his career at schools and stationed on Fort Benning, which instills in him a fondness for the post.
Everything that I am is what Fort Benning made me to be, as an infantryman, as a soldier, as a non-commissioned officer.
After Sergeant Major's 18 months on Fort Benning, he passes the guide on to Sergeant Major Timothy Gooden, previously the Command Sergeant Major of the Infantry School.
I really haven't personally set any goals, but I tell you that with every day as being a senior non-commissioned officer, you look forward to ensuring that soldiers are getting the great training that they need to go out and do what our Army asks them to do, and then to continue to enforce professionalism and what we expect of our soldiers. And so those are some of the things I'm going to carry with me initially.
As Sergeant Major Carabello leaves the home and legacy he's created at the MCOE, he reflects on what he would pass on to his soldiers. Seize
opportunity, not only to better yourself, but be part of a team, to be part of something bigger than what we all are, to represent our nation on the battlefield. I think that's the greatest honor I've ever had as a professional American soldier on the battlefield. No greater honor than that.
Nicole Randall, Fort Benning TV.
Future soldiers came to Fort Benning to get an idea of what the Army's all about. Melissa Bell takes us to the Army Strong experience to find out how America's Army is touching America's youth.
Fort Benning's Army Marksmanship Unit hosted the 4th annual Army Strong experience on Fort Benning. Touring different units from across posts, JROTC students from all around the area had the opportunity to see what the Army's all about.
They get a really good kickoff with the Rangers in action. They got some stuff that blows up out there. They see some helicopter ops that do some rappelling and stuff.
And not to mention a Combatives display showcasing different takedowns and why this is an asset for soldiers.
They said in the demonstration, basically they get caught up in situations where they don't have knives or don't have guns. They're taught to really protect themselves and defend themselves against the enemy.
After the Rangers in action, students moved on to Hook Range, where they got to see the Army Marksmanship Unit demonstrate excellence with pistols and shotguns. And a big surprise as targets soon turned into 2-liter sodas and a variety of produce.
I didn't really know what to think. I thought they were just playing a joke on us. I didn't think they were actually going to shoot it, but they did, and fruit got everywhere. It was a lot of fun.
This upbeat demonstration was a way for soldiers to convey what they do while keeping it entertaining.
It's customizable for each individual shooter.
And with students able to talk to these soldiers, it gave them a chance to ask questions and understand the Army for what it truly is.
We want them to leave with a visual and an actual experience of what the Army really entails.
You're looking out of these right here. So
having them come out here and witness it for themselves, they're not listening not only what the recruiters or commercials or what information they get off of social media, they could actually experience and witness it firsthand.
It's nice to be able to, ask about what you're getting into before you actually get into it, because some people don't have the opportunity. But it's nice that they gave people of the community an opportunity to do that.
For those who missed out on the Army Strong experience, check back next year, as this event is held annually. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
The Ranger Training Brigade, as we've known it, has changed. Due to the reorganization by the Maneuver Center, it is now the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade, creating a centralized unit to train Army Rangers and paratroopers. The ARTB is one of the most elite training brigades in the Army, as it now houses both Ranger School and Airborne School, creating highly trained Rangers and paratroopers.
This brigade now, especially with the addition of the Airborne School to our task organization, makes us really the only brigade in the Army that produces Airborne Rangers, non-Airborne Rangers, and Rangers for the 75th Ranger Regiment. There is no other brigade to go to. It makes us unique, and it makes us, in my opinion, very strategically important.
The combination of the two major schools into one brigade is not so far a stretch, because while their cadre may have different missions, they have the same level of standard as far as technical and tactical expertise.
The 1,200 cadre we have here are really what makes the difference at the end of the day. It's a relationship, it fits like a glove. I mean, they do a lot of high technical training that's NCO focused, just like the Ranger course does. It's high risk, just like we are. And the NCOs in the 507th are very much like the NCOs in the Ranger Training Brigade side of the house.
This helps because Airborne and Ranger go together nicely. And with both schools under the same roof, the brigade can make sure most soldiers get the opportunity to do both while on Fort Benning.
Every graduate that graduates the Ranger course, if he is not an airborne qualified soldier or officer when he comes here, we will send him, we will offer to his unit to send him to the Airborne course. We are making changes within the brigade based on the experience and the knowledge that we have, and we're applying some of the best practices of the Ranger Training Brigade to instructor certification in the 507th.
The ARTB not only trains and evaluates some of the most elite soldiers in the military, they also tie that legacy to the community through the Rangers in Action demonstration.
It really excites the crowds, and I think every time that you've got at least 4 or 5 people that are really volunteering to serve in the Army, they just don't know it yet. It gets them very excited about serving in the Army and serving their country. I really think every time we do one of those, we're creating the next generation of soldier.
With its adrenaline-packed demonstrations and the courses that it holds under its wings, the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade will help the Army train its soldiers and inspire new soldiers for the Army to come. Nicole Randall, Fort Benning TV.
Speaking of the impact the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade makes, Nate Snook is out at ARTB headquarters with the commander as he talks about the upcoming Best Ranger competition and what we can expect from this year's event. Nate?
All right, I'm out at Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade with the Brigade Commander, Colonel Lear. Sir, thanks for joining us on the Benning Report.
Great to be here.
We're here to talk about the Best Ranger competition that's coming up. Tell us a little bit about the competition.
Outstanding. Okay, the competition is the 11th through the 14th of April. We are bringing in 100 competitors this year, just like every other year, 50 teams. It's going to be about 62 hours in duration. And Lieutenant General retired David E. Grange, the father of the competition, is going to be here this year, and he's actually going to start the competition on Friday morning at 0600. So that's a great place to be if you want to come watch the start of the competition.
So this is a spectator-friendly event, and I know that recently people had to show their ID at the front gate and whatnot, and who needed DOD decals, but now you just really only need a driver's license to get on post, right?
Absolutely, and we welcome anybody to come to the competition. The more the merrier. There's a lot of great opportunities throughout all 3 days of the competition to get up close and personal to see the actual competitors. Probably the best day to do that is on Saturday, the second day, vicinity Todd Field, which is right over behind us over here.
Day 3 of the competition, wrapping it up, where's a good place to see the finish line?
Probably down right in front of Freedom Hall. That's where we're going to finish about 1500 on Sunday. Every one of the competitors that's still in the competition will hopefully cross the finish line right in front of all the spectators.
You know, with all these years the Army's been at war, What type of person does it take to come through and be a competitor in the Best Ranger competition?
Well, you know, our Army's Rangers are about 1% of the total Army force, and the guys that come here, the 100 competitors that start on day one, are the cream of the crop. I mean, they are the 1% of the 1%. What defines these guys is really the mental resilience, the physical endurance, and the intestinal fortitude that it takes to finish this competition.
All right, sir, tell us a little bit about the award ceremony.
Absolutely. Monday, the 14th of April, 1000 hours, Marshall Auditorium.
Awesome. All right, sir, I appreciate it. Colonel Lear from the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade. All right, come and check out the Best Ranger competition, April 11th through the 13th. You can also check out coverage on our YouTube site at youtube.com/BenningTV. Coming up after the break, Ranger students get down and dirty at Malvesti Obstacle Course.
Fort Benning's U.S. Army Combative School trains soldiers who are already competent fighters how to instruct in the art of hand-to-hand combat.
We have a tactical aspect, and we're focused on staying alive and saving other soldiers.
On any given day, you could walk into the Combatives gym on Fort Benning and see soldiers engaged in hand-to-hand combat. And while they look like they're being trained to be fighters, they're really learning to survive.
I'm going to guide his arm out right, and I'm going to drive that blade of my forearm into that nerve bundle.
Everything that they learn here are life-saving skills. It's not a sporting event, it's an actual tool. It's an integral part of what we do as soldiers. We all signed up to defend our country, and that's part of defending our country is having these life-saving skills and returning home from a mission. It's a life-saving skill that every soldier should have.
Fighting may be what you see, but if you look closer, these students are walking through their moves slowly. The basic course, or level 3, is a train the trainer course. The students in this course are physically and mentally capable of fighting, but what they learn here is how to teach that same competency.
It's a very physical, demanding course. When you come here, you're supposed to be able to go back and teach the masses or out at the force. So it's not just a matter of how strong you are, it's also how smart and how well you can instruct.
It may seem like there's an awful lot of fighting for an instructor's course, but Combatives is an entirely hands-on art, and in order to know you're proficient enough to teach it, you need to get hands-on.
The other thing I don't want to do is take my pistol and put it on his head.
We show the technique so that they have the right way as an example. And then we step-by-step instruct so they know every step that you're going through. And then why we teach those certain steps, like why use this grip. That way they can take that same step-by-step process and take it to their soldiers when they're training.
One of the most intense parts of Level 3 is the tactical scenario, where students form a squad, utilize the techniques they've been taught, and go through a realistic combat situation. They do this as an example of a scenario they can utilize in training when they are the ones instructing.
Traffic control points is a particular scenario. Patrolling is one, clearing rooms is another. So there are many ways that we can integrate it in.
Get him down!
If it's not practiced and it's not integrated, then they will not have necessarily that knowledge or a safer way to engage the enemy.
Get down, get out. Watch his head. Yep.
While the tactical scenario is the culminating event, the teachbacks are what decides if a student goes home an instructor.
Now, as we pull across, if our opponent knows what we're about to do, he's going to drop his chin.
The soldier needs to do these teachbacks and be able to understand not just the how to do the technique, but the why they're doing the technique. And then they can execute and not just teach, but assist other soldiers who are having difficulty executing a move.
The Level 3 Combatives course teaches soldiers who are already proficient in the moves, refines those skills, and adds the ability to instruct other soldiers. As we continue to highlight the Combatives course, we'll move to Level 4, where soldiers still learn to instruct, but at a higher level. Nicole Randall, Fort Benning TV.
It's one of Ranger School's toughest gut-busting events, and Ranger students get a taste of it on day 2. Melissa Bell shows us how they will take on the Malvesti Obstacle Course.
Soldiers who come to Ranger School expect for it to be tough. Yet as they reach the end of day 2, only half of them remain for the Malvesti Obstacle Course.
Ready, down,
Ranger! Down! Ranger! Down!
Malvesti is pretty much 10 obstacles in this whole entire course, and this event is very physically demanding, mostly on the upper body.
Before students even get to their first obstacle, they must first complete a 2.1-mile buddy run, where the term buddy means just that. Paired up, these soldiers can't be more than an arm's length away from their partner.
Let's go, Rangers, hurry up!
But when they head to Malvesti, they'll face everything from pull-ups to rope climbs and horizontal ladders.
Get up there, hurry up! Ranger, what is wrong with you?
This course is a real gut check for soldiers, and for most, it started long before Ranger school, as students prepared for conditions as miserable as war itself.
Definitely work mostly on upper body. Definitely a lot of pull-ups, your shoulders, your back muscles, your arms, and your core.
Hey, Ranger, you over here. Go back up there and touch that tape.
Most of the obstacles in this course are mostly pulling yourself up and over the obstacle, up, or hanging on to the obstacle.
At this point, students have had very little food and very little sleep. Their minds can easily enter a fog, and it's the Ranger instructor's job to cut through that haze.
Pick your Ranger buddy up! Put him on your shoulder!
This is where their voice comes in handy.
Yes, Sergeant!
RAP is 4 days long, and the thing that makes RAP so difficult for most soldiers is the events are basically back-to-back in a 4-day window. The average soldier that comes to this course is very, very fit to begin with. And most of the soldiers that come here could do any one of these events by itself and probably pass. But when all 4 events are done back-to-back in a 4-day window, the rates of success go down.
All right, squad! Squad, Rangers! Get up!
Your mind is telling your body to quit. So you're thinking that, oh, my body can't do it no more, but I think it's more on your mind. It's more, if you just tell your mind you got this, you're just gonna push on through.
Ranger!
Students in this course have to prove they have the mental fortitude and the physical strength and agility to be a Ranger.
Every person in the Army wants to come to their school, but not all of them succeed.
While students can't be dropped because of this event, their attitude and perseverance is noted, as Ranger instructors are always evaluating students and can still give a major or minor minus.
You're going to place your hands on your chest and utilize the heels of your feet to pull yourself down.
It's all about heart.
Ranger!
Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, Fort Benning's emergency services engage in a force protection exercise.
Recently, Fort Benning Emergency Services and other directorates tested the installation's readiness in emergency situations during the annual Force Protection exercise.
The safety and welfare of our soldiers, civilians, their families, and our community is a top priority. Working together with law enforcement and emergency response partners from the local community, first responders were put through their paces recently during Fort Benning's annual Force Protection exercise. The day began early with a simulated active shooter and hostage scenario, followed quickly by this scene, a vehicle engulfed in flames with burn victims trapped inside.
There are a number of scenarios ongoing today. It's to test our force protection, strength and weaknesses. The exercise is going well. We've been able to identify definitely the shortcomings within the organization, and then it gives us something to work on throughout the year.
Personnel were evaluated on making the initial calls, situation assessment, and movements to ensure safety throughout the installation. Before the day was over, 2 more crisis scenarios played out, including a simulated suspected explosive device placed in a heavily occupied building on main post. An explosive ordnance disposal unit arrived on the scene to neutralize the threat. As the force protection exercise continued, the Public Affairs Office was activated as well, testing their ability to gather and disseminate timely information. This included staging a press conference for Garrison Commander Colonel Michael Herder.
It's our job to communicate the information accurately and as quickly as possible, which we did through the media and also using social media, which has become more of a standard now for us.
All the scenarios from this exercise were taken from real-life events, which should remind us that we should all remain aware of our surroundings and not hesitate to notify law enforcement of any suspicious behavior or unintended items. David Wright, Fort Benning TV.
After the break, honoring Fort Benning's namesake.
You hear the name Fort Benning, but do you know where the name Benning comes from? Melissa Bell brings us Henry Louis Benning and how we remember him on his bicentennial birthday.
You may not see much in the way of artifacts, photos, and video of Henry Louis Benning, but that's a symbol of his time. So when we think of Henry Louis Benning today, instead of seeing photographs, we see reminders of how he impacted our lives, and later became the namesake of Fort Benning.
Now, Henry L. Benning was born in 1814 and moved to Columbus, Georgia as fast as he could get here, I suppose. He graduated from law school at the University of Georgia and was admitted to the bar at age 21. He was nominated for the U.S. Senate, for example, from the state of Georgia, but he was most noted before the Civil War as becoming a member of the Georgia Supreme Court.
Declining certain political positions, at the rise of the Civil War, Henry Louis Benning formed the 17th Regiment of Georgia Volunteers, where he's noted for his bravery and perseverance while fighting for Southern rights.
They fought in Virginia and they fought in Gettysburg and many other places, and at one time were sent to Georgia and fought at the Battle of Chickamauga. There, Old Rock, as his men had nicknamed him, led his brigade into the fight on the second day. His horse was shot out from under him. He went to a local artillery battery and took one of their horses and with a piece of rope whipped it back into the battle line, leading his troops, "Follow me."
The courage and valor Henry Louis Benning displayed was remembered, and as Camp Benning, later known as Fort Benning, was erected, it was Henry Louis Benning's name that was chosen to inspire this camp. Henry Louis Benning fought for what he believed in, and he gave that same spirit to the soldiers of Fort Benning, a spirit that continues to thrive in the Maneuver Center of Excellence, a home to the infantry and armor alike, a home to the American soldier. Melissa Bell, Fort Benning TV.
It's so interesting to see how Fort Benning soldiers, civilians, and families work together to make such a great community. And that will bring this edition of the Benning Report to an end.
But you can watch these stories and others on youtube.com/BenningTV or at benning.army.mil.
You can also like us on Facebook.
From the Fort Benning Public Affairs Office, thanks for watching.